There have been a few game betas that left me counting down the days until launch. I bought Crackdown and Bulletstorm to get access to Halo 3 and the Gears 3 betas. Then I spent the summers of 2007 and 2011 watching and reading every bit of content for those games while replaying the beta matches over and over in my head. Those betas felt like a small tease of something really special to come. And I'm now placing the Gears E-Day beta among them. I kept sneaking back to play one more match between work, my daughter's end of the summer get-together, and home improvement projects. I haven't had that feeling with the beta since putting down my trigonometry homework for the Gears 3 beta. Nowadays, betas have become synonymous with early preview events and server tests rather than a true public testing ground for feedback that can be implemented before launch. The E-Day beta likely falls into that camp, but after playing for 15 hours, I can see the vision for this Gears title. And it has me counting down the days to October's launch, while still hopeful that there's enough time for feedback to be taken into consideration and implemented. The vision for this game is a heavyweight shooter that blends mechanical execution and application of all combat elements into contextual situations. I've often thought of Gears as been excellent at making fights play out like a dance, where there's a push and pull of skill and knowledge between players playing out with shot pacing, movement mechanic timing and application, accuracy, and even mind games. The layers of combat were always so interesting and satisfying, which most games don't have. Most multiplayer games want to push speed of movement and pace, with your players sliding and speeding through the maps with every input. But E-Day is emphasizing the simplicity of combat, with concepts like shot pacing, timing, mechanical understanding, and yes, even movement. E-Day isn't slow by any means. You can still wall bounce, traverse maps by up-Aing between cover, and even sliding into Nasher fights. But the feeling is much weightier now. Gears 3 through 5 had an arcadey feeling, as if characters were equipped with ice skates during wall cancels and bounces. But now, wall cancels and bounces have more inertia and weight behind them. This vision of versus being the dance of combat between players is here at E-Day's core, and I think it could be the best in the series. Complaints of movements and delay are usually brought up because this is just different than what we're used to in past Gears titles. And I fell trapped to that myself initially. At first I thought something felt off, mainly because I was more used to coming off of Gears 5 lately. But once I saw the vision for this heavier movement system, where mechanic execution was tighter and needed to be applied in contextual situations, it started to click. Wall bouncing and canceling to jiggle through maps and fights isn't as much of a thing anymore. Cover application needs to be closer and more thought out. Wall bouncing needs to be integrated into strafing, shot pacing, timing, and the new sprint mechanic, rather than solely relied upon to get kills. Now, there's always the debate on wall bouncing in terms of its effect on the game's approachability and viability to the casual market. But I think there's enough here to satisfy veterans, but also tuned down enough so it isn't the focal style of play, which will make the game more approachable as a whole. And let's face it, Gears needs to have a middle ground of combat where the movement is still deep and expandable through varied mechanics, rather than being solely dominated by the wall bouncing and canceling. If the series wants to evolve and have a robust player base alongside potential for future esports, it needs to not only be approachable, but also watchable to a larger audience. Providing depth to combat through multiple movement mechanics to master can do this, and I think the Coalition is on the right track. What I do know is that every double, triple, quad kill using a sprint strafe, a wall bounce, or even a simple circle strafe was very satisfying. It gave me that feeling that there is a large skill gap to be had in this game, but also not one that's so difficult to even comprehend that it won't be approachable at a good starting point for the larger audience. To me, playing an arena-style shooter like this is all about, as I've said, that dance between players. Who can get the upper hand on one? Who can implement a movement mechanic or have better accuracy at the right time to prevail in a fight? And Gears E-Day Beta in ranked especially, left me walking away from each match, wondering how I could play something different, what I could improve on, and wanting to keep coming back to it because the core combat felt that satisfying and within my control. Now, the weapon balance has always been a point of contention as well. Should the Gnasher always be dominant? Should rifles get a buff? Should this turn into more of a stand behind cover and shoot game? I think rifles are at a good place damage-wise. The Lancer spread and bloom could be changed slightly and improved upon, but I would also worry at the implication of limiting movement around the map in a setting to where, as I've said, things feel more weighty and intentional. As it stands, the Lancer does a good job at suppressing people, stopping Gnasher rushers who are careless with their movement from cover to cover with the stopping power, and it's also good at supporting teammates who are engaged in close quarters fights. There were a lot of times in Conquest where I was coming off spawn with a teammate engaged in a 1v2 or more, and providing some Lancer fire from a distance gave them the advantage to get the down with a Gnasher. So I think there's definitely a nice play between the Gnasher damage profile and range, along with what the Lancer can provide from the medium to longer ranges. The Retro is an on-map pickup, and I think it feels good in terms of the damage to recoil control. It's very strong, but it also kicks extremely hard. So being able to output that much damage from a distance isn't as viable as getting into the more medium to close range environments and feathering the trigger to make sure the Retro is still accurate. Now, as far as the Gnasher, I think the damage profile could use a little tweak to allow for more opportunity for you to take on a shot that puts you full red as you move in for the chunk with good spacing, movement, and shot timing. As it stands now, if you're in that intended range, furthest away where you won't get a one-shot chunk, but it's not going to give you a full red. It's always going to be that two-shot down. So making the damage profile a little bit heavier could increase some of the skill gap in the more close to mid-range fights. But overall, I think it's a good reined-in version of this. Overall, the movement mechanics, the way the game plays out, feels good to me. I think this is a great point to build on with some minor tweaks, but there are some glaring feedback in the negative department I like to give here. First, PC performance. I'm running a 5090 with a 9800X3D, and I was getting 150 frames, mostly steady, with most things on low and ultra performance. Even that said, I was getting some frame drops and hiccups during the versus mode, so I would like to see PC performance optimized more, and I'm hopeful that it will be with launch, just given what some other content creators have said. So this being an Unreal Engine 5 game, I was surprised with the performance. It looks gorgeous, but getting some of the frame drops and timing down would be nice. Another thing that I wasn't too happy with was the incidence of trades in combat. They were pretty common in Gnasher fights to where you were on the same cadence of shot timing with an opponent and you would down each other at the same time. Or even often I would get the kill from the grave medal. So that clearly points to some hiccups in the networking and shot registration. I didn't think anything was egregious here of getting a bunch of no regs or having a lot of shot delay or input lag, but definitely the trades does have some of the combat scenarios play out in a less than completely satisfying manner. The one weapon that I thought was a little overtuned was the incinerator. It gives a lot of value for the amount of ammo it has and the ease of use. So I would like to see maybe the ammo be reduced or to have a slightly longer charge time to balance that risk versus reward playstyle, especially when you're in Gnasher fights. You know, if it had a longer charge time, just by a little bit, it would give a Gnasher user or a rifle user even time to outplay in between shots if you're outside of its intended range, or if you miss. That next charge time would give them the chance to make an outplay scenario, which I think would put that weapon in a very good spot. It's extremely potent. And the last bit of feedback is the center screen aiming. This is always going to be divisive, and I don't think it's a glaring issue, but it does have that trade-off in knowing where an opponent's shots are going versus consistency, right? We've seen the inconsistency with barrel aiming, and center screen aiming gives consistency, but it can be frustrating when you get killed from someone whose barrel is pointed another way, and it definitely is more apparent with the sliding in this game. So center screen aiming, at the end of the day, I would take it for consistency, but I understand the frustrations here. So I think this has been a very positive beta. I've had a blast with it, and I can't wait to come back for more next weekend, and I'm counting down the days to launch. I will definitely be interested to see how some of the balance plays out over the coming week and months, but I think there's enough here at the core of the game to give a really satisfying Gears of War experience while being approachable to newcomers, but still having a very expandable skill gap for the people who take the time to master not only wall bouncing, but regular strafing, how to integrate sprint and strafing, when to slide into cover and up A. I mean, the options here are very wide, and I'm looking forward to it.